Welcome to Prime Time. I'm Susan Hoskins, the director of the Princeton Senior Resource Center. We provide programs and services for older adults, their families, and caregivers. Prime Time is a show for adults in the prime of life. Today we're going to talk about transportation in Princeton. My guest is Sandra Persichetti, director of Princeton Community Housing. Welcome, Sandy.
Thank you.
So I wanted to do this show because we have exciting news about a new transportation option in town. But before we get to talking about the details of the daytime freebie, I'd like to talk about where all this came from, because it feels like you and I have been on committees talking about transportation forever. Talk about some of the transportation needs of the residents in Princeton Community Housing communities.
Well, Princeton Community Housing has a variety of sites. We have 4 sites, 2 of which are for seniors or for older adults. And there are 155 apartments at both Elm Court and Harriet Bryan House, housing probably 175 people. And less than half of those people have cars. Many others do drive, but they just can't afford to keep a car. So,
and Elm Court and Harriet Bryan House are on no public
they are
transit
on no public
route at all.
That's correct. That's correct. So we actually do some fundraising, and Tyco has been very generous to us in giving us funds so that we can retain the services of Buckingham Place, a van from Buckingham Place, just twice a week, but only for half days. So they have a 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. window. And if you can't get everything done in that time period, it's very difficult, because that means you can't do it.
So those community partnerships have really helped you to provide some limited shopping service for residents who are unable to get there on their own, but they have to go to those places too.
Exactly. It's not, the bus mostly does grocery shopping, and then once a month it does Walmart shopping, that Walmart Target, that center.
Nassau Park.
Right, the Nassau Park Center. But it's not as convenient as having something on a regular basis. When, you know, the committee that you mentioned, when we talked about doing a questionnaire for people, a number of our residents said if there was reliable transportation that they could count on, they would sell their cars.
Wow.
So I think that's
and I know
an
that
incentive.
as Director of Senior Services, that's one of the things that we often talk about with people and with their families, that there comes a point for many people when they should give up driving.
Up their keys, yes.
Or when the family or the doctor or other family members, other friends are concerned that a person really should stop driving. But in a suburban community like Princeton, it's really hard to get where you want to go unless you have a car. And it's sort of the last representation of independence and freedom.
Right.
So.
I think the committee has been talking long and hard about the use of the bus that is currently used as a commuter, freebie bus, because right now it's only used in the morning and then in the early evening hours for commute. So it sits idle, which makes people like you and me a little anxious that it could be providing a really good service. It could be providing a service.
So let's talk about, let's keep talking about what the options are for folks. So you talked about Elm Court and Harriet Bryan, which are residences for older adults and people with disabilities.
Correct.
And so you have these 2 times a week that we because
provide.
of grants and partnerships, you're able to provide. I know that because we oversee the Crosstown transportation. Right. Crosstown is a door-to-door car service, so people register with us, then they call, they schedule a ride.
However, that's a $3.
It's a $3 charge.
A charge for each way. So if you're doing something even twice a week, that's $12 a week, and when your annual income is relatively low, that's a significant
And I know that at PSRC we see that because people say, well, gee, I'd like to come to that class, but paying for the transportation, paying even a modest fee for the class does add up and make it prohibitive. Right. So that's one of the opportunities is Crosstown. And Crosstown also only runs within Princeton
Yes.
during the day. So if you want to go to a show at McCarter at night, you can't.
Can't do that.
Or if you want to go to a doctor in Lawrenceville, you can't. The doctor in Lawrenceville you could do through Ride Provide, which is another, we'll put these phone numbers up at the end of the show. Ride Provide is a part of Greater Mercer Transportation, and again, it's door-to-door car service. There's an annual membership fee, and then the rides are something like $5, $10, and $12 depending on the distance that you're traveling in. So again, that adds
It's
up
expensive.
considerably.
Yeah, sure.
But it is an option
It's
for
available.
people.
Right. And then there's Access Link for people with disabilities that is part of the New Jersey transit system, but it's also a by reservation only bit of transportation. So it isn't something that you just wake up on a Tuesday morning and say, I'd like to go shopping, or I'd like to go to the library, or I'd like to go downtown, and be able to get on a bus and do. It has to be a planned activity, basically.
And Access Link and Trade, which is another option, transportation for older adults and people with disabilities. Trade focuses mostly on doctor's appointments, medical appointments, and is another one you have to reserve ahead of time during specific hours. And for both of those, you need to be prepared that there might be a wait, either on the pickup end or the drop-off end, because they're picking up other people and may be delayed. Someone may need extra assistance.
Right.
Or be delayed at the doctor's office, so the driver has to wait.
I think it's all a matter of the scheduling of it, because Trade, because they pick up multiple people, if you're only going 3 miles away, you may have to do a trip that is 10 miles long as they drop off
Like being on the
people.
school bus.
Like being on the school bus or being behind the school bus.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think this committee, which consists of people from borough government, township government, the university,
Princeton Community Housing.
Princeton Community Housing, PSRC, and Anton.
Well, he's borough.
Okay.
He's our borough representative.
Borough representative.
Right.
And Bob Brusheye, Borough
Brusheye,
Administrator,
sure.
Chad Gerner, the Township Administrator. We've been meeting for some time, and one of the things that that also came up, Kristen Applegate and Kim from the university have been really helpful, is looking at the whole community and looking at all the existing transportation. So I think many of us, when we're on Nassau Street, we see the Tiger Transit bus go by, we see the New Jersey Transit bus go by,
See the seminary bus go by.
and the Institute.
Yeah.
So there are all these buses running, but there doesn't seem to be any communication or linkage between them. And so one of the fantasies that we entertained was creating an interlocking system.
I also think, the system that we sort of came up with is having the freebie work after morning commute and before evening commute, and doing a loop in town, and also stopping at Elm Court and Harry Bryan House and PCV and the Resource Center. But I think the thing that we hadn't really thought about, but as I've been thinking about it, it would also help aides getting to our seniors if they could come into town on New Jersey Transit and find a connection. So it would help working people get to certainly Elm Court and Harry Bryan House, which has no public transportation, as we said.
So another part of those interconnecting circles, somebody could come from one of those other neighboring communities, from the New Brunswick direction or the Trenton direction, get to Palmer Square, hook
Get on the
up
freebie.
with this daytime freebie, and get to
work.
Get to work wherever they work in town.
Right. So that would be a real asset, I think,
It would.
for people. And I also think that starting this in the summer was a good idea, because we include the pool, so people don't have to drive and find a parking space at the township lot, and just get the freebie to the pool back and forth.
Right.
How easy would that be?
So as you said, the borough got this little bus from New Jersey Transit, a New Jersey Transit grant. And that grant was to run the freebie, they called it the freebie, to run from the train station to do a small loop around town.
Right.
That bus runs from 5 to 9 in the morning and 5 to 9 at night.
Right.
So it helps people get off of the New Jersey Transit dinky or the bus and get in
Into
that
town.
loop around town, which is Nassau Street, Harrison Street,
Right.
Hamilton, Bayard Lane. It just runs that inner loop because it runs frequently. And I think that that has helped some commuters get into town, get to jobs in town, and back out again. But as you said, we've been sitting there looking at it going, oh boy, could we use this?
Yes.
So this is the daytime freebie, which is going to start on July 6th, and which will run on Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday between 9:30 and 5:30 by the time the route is completed.
Right.
And it will leave the Suzanne Patterson building or Borough Hall at the half hour, 9:30, 10:30, 12:30.
Right.
There's an hour in there for the driver's lunch. 12:30, 1:30, 2:30, 3:30. So I guess it ends at 4:30. It's free. It's available to anybody in the community.
Right.
Or someone like me who lives outside the community but works in the
And
community.
wants
I
to
can
get
leave
somewhere.
my car parked and get to a meeting by hopping on this bus, and it will run around town. The route for the bus is posted on the PSRC website, princetonsenior.org. It will also be posted on the borough website, and I believe the township website.
And we'll certainly post it on ours.
Posted on
Yeah.
your website. So there's several places, and the newspapers have run it. So there are several places where you can find the route and go out and catch it, get to the pool, the library,
The shopping center.
the shopping center.
Be a good bus to use to get someplace in the shopping center for lunch. Turn around and come back.
And one of the things that you mentioned at the earlier this hour and also before we were talking, and that is that not only at Elm Court, Harriet Bryan, but also at Princeton Community Village.
Yes, Princeton Community Village, there are over 600 residents there, and 80% of the people who work in town. So they're either at the hospital, at the university, at various retails and restaurants, various local businesses. So what a great regional planning opportunity to be able to have them be able to use the freebie to get to work and leave their cars where they live. If they
have cars.
If they have
I
cars.
imagine a lot of people, again, don't have reliable transportation, so this is a way for them to reliably get to work. And I've thought of the things I've read in the paper about people who use a bike to get back and forth, and I always feel so sorry for them
In the
riding
winter.
a bike in the winter on icy roads, or when it gets dark at 4:30,
Sure.
or trying to take laundry bags to the shopping center to do laundry on a bicycle, coming back with groceries.
Sure. It would be a wonderful asset, and I hope more than anything that this trial period that we have finally agreed on will prove heavy ridership for people of all ages, because I think it can serve people of all ages. It's not just for older citizens here.
It's important to get that message out and to
Right.
share that in the community. So we have a 6-month trial period from July through the end of the year, and the question will be, do people take advantage of it? Do people learn about it and begin to use it? And I think that as people begin to use it, and as we've just brainstormed the things that we envision people using it for, I think that some people are going to use it for things that we don't imagine yet. And we hope that someday in the future, if this is successful, we can then make connections with some of those other loops and make these runs more efficient. I know the university and those others who run buses, the institutions in town, are looking at ways that they can combine routes and consolidate routes. One of the things that I also wanted to make people aware of is that the university says that anybody can ride a Tiger Transit bus. We see the Tiger Transit buses in town, and we assume that they are for graduate students to get in from graduate housing to the university.
But they're open. They're open to the
That's
public
right.
for free again.
and one of them runs down to Nassau Park.
Oh, okay. That's
So, again, the place to go for that information would be the Tiger Transit part of the university's website. But if you live in Princeton, work in Princeton, you can use those buses as well to get from one place to another.
good. So we have lots of possibilities. It's just connecting the dots
It is.
and connecting sites that are not on any transit schedule right now.
And I think it's shifting our thinking too. As a suburban community, we may not think first of using public transit. We may not. I was just reading in the Times about Europe proposing some measures to get people to shift from private automobiles to public transit. Things like London implementing fees for bringing
using
a
your
car
Sure.
into London. Sometimes it's through taxing, which is a sort of punitive system. Sometimes it's a reward system. In this case, it's kind of a reward system.
Sure.
Hey, this thing's out there for free,
Sure, sure.
thanks to the donors that help to provide this 6-month.
With the goal
Test
that, I
period.
mean, I think people need to know that it's not just a 6-month period, assuming it's used frequently. The goal is to get it to be year-round and more frequent than 3 days a week. Have it be full-time, which would be the dependable transportation that I know some of our residents have been waiting for, and they would be very willing to sell their cars and give up the insurance and the car payments and all of that if they had dependable transportation. So,
Yeah. And one of the things that we've done at PSRC is to look at our schedule on Monday and Wednesday. We're not open on Saturday at this point, but
Right.
we've looked at our schedule on Monday and Wednesday and looked at what kinds of activities and programs can we schedule on those days that would draw people to come in and would fit with the route
Right.
of the freebie. So our summer movie series is going to be scheduled
days,
on those
yeah.
days. We have table tennis on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, starting at 10:30, so people can come in and play that. That's a very exciting, active group of
Sure.
folks. It's very it can be intergenerational, also international, because a lot of people speak ping pong.
Sure, sure.
But we're hoping that people will come, and that we, as one of the organizations participating and wanting to see more of this, can encourage use by making our programs fit. We've had conversations with the program staff at the library as well, and they're looking at ways to retool their schedule again so that it fits. And we know that the library is one of the busiest places during the summer.
Sure, sure.
After the news of this came out in one of the local papers, I got an email from someone saying, I am so excited because this will make it easier for me to get my kids to the pool.
Sure. Sure.
And I know that there are young teens who will love the independence.
And not having to ask mom or dad for a ride. One of the other things that we have been invited to participate in some of the art exhibits and plays at the Lewis Center for the Arts on campus. And of course, they're usually in the afternoon. So for our residents who don't drive, that's as much as they would like to go, they can't get there. So I think the freebie gives them access to lots of cultural activities on campus and around town that they wouldn't have otherwise.
Right. Right. So there's so many
much,
opportunities involved here that we think about work, we think about recreation, and we know, because both of us work with older adults,
Sure.
that the key factors to healthy aging include social. So here we are. Here's an opportunity for some of our older adults from throughout the community who can get to this bus route to come out and be connected with other people, to do things that are social, make new friendships.
Sure.
Another factor is physical activity. So come in and do things with us, or go to a program at the Y that it gets you involved physically. intellectually. So we're talking about going to things at the university, going to lectures
Sure,
at
sure.
other organizations in town, getting to the library. We're trying to hit all those centers for healthy aging and healthy growing up. So the freebie, the daytime freebie, will run Monday, Wednesday, and Saturday.
Starting at 9:30.
Starting at 9:30.
Starting at Borough Hall.
Right.
Make a loop.
Make a route around town, which includes Elm Court and Harriet Bryan House.
And
It
the shopping
includes
center. This is
the
a-
Witherspoon Street, the shopping center, Nassau Street.
We are not seeing
Princeton
municipal
Community Building.
boundaries with this.
That's right.
Crosses,
Borough and township
crosses
working
municipal
together.
boundaries.
So we hope that people will ride it. So
We sure do.
let me take our last couple of minutes to talk about something else, because I think that we are also aware that this is one major milestone, and then there are new challenges to fill in. So if we can get this really solid and working. on a regular basis, I envision that the next challenge is transportation to the medical center complex. When the medical center moves across Route 1, that Route 1 has been sort of a psychological barrier for
Sure,
many people.
sure. It puts
It's
it
in
out
a
of
different
reach, yeah.
municipality. But we have, this whole community relies on the medical center to connect with for health care.
Well, wouldn't it be nice to have an extension of the freebie go across Route 1? I mean, if this is successful, we can envision maybe multiple buses, not just the one that we're trying to stretch to the limit,
Right.
but actually have 2 or 3 so that maybe on every half hour they could start their route, and certain times would take you across the street to the medical center.
Well, that's one of the things I've learned in being on this committee, is that there's sort of a tipping point that a bus needs to come often enough that people will decide to use it.
Yes.
And so your route can't be too long. If we went every place anybody could imagine in town, we've got a route that's too long, and then
Sure.
it only runs once every 2 hours, and
That's not,
people
that won't
decide
work.
not to
Yeah,
do it.
That won't work.
So there's this balancing act that you need to do in terms of frequency and extension. And I think that's one of the reasons that I've heard people talking about sort of interconnecting
Some of the
loops
other
as well.
resources, sure.
And I think that there's been a lot of discussion anticipating this move of the medical center complex involving New Jersey Transit and Princeton Healthcare System and people on this committee.
Sure.
But I'm hopeful that if we get this part well established, that then envisioning that next step won't be as hard.
It does prove the need. If this one can be successful, it all of a sudden proves the need. And I do think dependable is a key ingredient. People have to know that if they're standing on wherever the pickups are, that the bus will come,
Yeah.
the van will come. They can't be left in the lurch if if they're waiting, and it just has to be dependable.
Right. One thing we didn't mention, and we should, is that one of the freebie buses, there are 2 owned by Princeton, one of them does have a handicapped lift.
Yes.
And we expect that this daytime route will use the handicapped access bus. The only time it won't be running the handicapped access bus is if it's in the shop for some
Exactly,
reason. But
right.
we do have every intention of this daytime route having that lift
Yeah.
for people who are using power chairs or
Sure.
wheelchairs.
Sure. That's good. That's important.
Yeah.
It's important for us.
It's interesting as the community talks about consolidation and merging, we don't know where that's going to go, but to me this is really symbolic of another step in that direction of the municipalities and the community working together for something that will serve the entire community. And I think there's a whole movement out there about livable communities and sustainable communities, and I think that having public transportation is a key element of a sustainable community. Getting cars
Right. Well, I also think that the other movement is that people are wanting to retire back into a more urban environment so that they can leave their cars except for weekends or special trips, but they want to be able to access the library and art and culture and stores and restaurants by foot. So to have a bus that serves our downtown area is a wonderful idea. I think it would be used by, people of all socioeconomic levels. It's not, and all ages,
all levels,
and all ages.
right.
Yeah.
People committed to sustainability,
Sure,
people tired
sure.
of getting traffic tickets in town.
Sure,
people-
and filling up at the gas tank.
Right, right. Especially as we look at gas prices increasing.
Yeah.
And so I think there are a lot of reasons. And I think Princeton's really fortunate. I think sometimes we forget that things are possible here that aren't possible in every
In
community
others,
because
yeah.
there are really dedicated people working on it. People like you, people like the others on this committee who just doggedly keep bringing
at
it
it.
up. And so we do have groups like Community Without Walls, which has really
Yes,
been
yes.
behind the idea of having affordable transportation for people who don't drive. I want to give everybody credit for all the pieces that went into making this happen in Princeton, because I don't think there are a lot of communities that of this size that have a bus that runs around or door-to-door crosstown. And let me also say that I don't anticipate that the freebie will replace crosstown at all. So if anybody's worried out there about this replacing the crosstown transportation, I really don't think it will, because crosstown really helps people who cannot walk, cannot
and can't
get very
stand
far,
and
and
wait.
need the
Yeah.
door-to-door kind of service. So this is a supplemental
Right.
kind of thing. So we hope we've sold everybody on the idea of using the freebie. Look for it. It's a white bus with a freebie logo on the side. It says the freebie. Go to one of the freebie stops, flag down the freebie, and take a ride. Start using it. And we hope we'll see you out there. Thank you, Sandy, so much for joining me today and talking about transportation in Princeton.
You're welcome.